Hello and welcome to Encore, the arts and culture show here on France 24. Coming up, what happens when you mix manga with memory? A bizarre science fiction drama if the film Real is anything to go by. Plus, the high price of love. We take a look at the film The Best Offer, which sees a know-it-all auctioneer fall for an unattainable beauty. And when you hear the word gigolo, you probably think of sex and money, but hold that thought. John Turturro shows us it's not always that straightforward. Our cinema critic Lisa Nesselson is here to give us her take on all these films, so let's get started. Hi Lisa, great to have you with us as always.
Hello Jade.
We're going to start with Real, which is the latest film by writer-director Kiyoshi Kurosawa. Now some people get this director confused with another one by the same name, don't they?
They're not related, but that is a good name to know because Akira Kurosawa, who died back in 1998, gave the world Rashomon and the Seven Samurai. You know, if your name happens to be Susie Tarantino or Bob Fellini and you want to be a film director, it must be annoying that your last name is already sort of taken, yeah. Anyway, Real is a movie about memory that I didn't find all that memorable. It's got some creepy elements and a potentially interesting premise. When a woman who draws comic books ends up in a coma because of a suicide attempt, her boyfriend enters her consciousness via a special device in a clinic. Let's watch.
ここは現実じゃない。意識の中だ。センシングという特別な方法で直接渥美の意識にコンタクトしてるんだ。
渥美さんが1年前に自殺未遂した理由に触れるのは辛いことでしょう。
仮想と現実が崩壊する中で真実を知った時、二人の愛は奇跡を起こせるのか。
ありがとう。
リアル、完全なる首長竜の日。
Now, Lisa, this director has a following in Japan, but also elsewhere, doesn't he?
That's absolutely true. His 2008 film, Tokyo Sonata, about a middle-class family, won a prize at Cannes, and it's considered a sensitive, realistic departure from his usual themes, which tend to be supernatural and horror. And French audiences have always appreciated his horror films because they always have a serious aesthetic component. They're lovely to look at. His 4.5-hour-long Penance, made for Japanese television, played here last year in 2 parts in theaters for a long time. A schoolgirl is murdered and her best girlfriends can't identify the killer, so the dead girl's mother sort of puts a punishment, a spell on them, and 15 years later things get really weird. Kurosawa is definitely interested in the effect traumatic events can have on young people and how they cope with guilt and grief. France 24 spoke to Kurosawa about the role of his generation. He was born in 1955 as compared to the young protagonists.
Characters in my movies have possibly experienced dark moments in their lives, although heroes often are very young, just like in Real, where they are in their 20s. As a consequence, I always imagine endings that allow us to look forward. I did that 10 years ago in Cairo. In this film, a young couple survived to the complete destruction of Tokyo. In doing so, I wanted to say that if there is no hope anymore for my generation, the future is still full of possibilities for young people, no matter what they have experienced in the past.
It's encouraging to know there's always hope for the next generation. Well, the next 2 films we'll be discussing are more geared towards adults. Out this week in France is the first English-language film by Giuseppe Tornatore, who gave us Cinema Paradiso in 1988. It's called The Best Offer, and it stars Geoffrey Rush.
I really, really enjoyed this film, which was a major hit in Italy. Nobody likes an expert who's too sure of him or herself, and Geoffrey Rush is absolutely perfect as such a person. Virgil Oldman, a fastidious auctioneer with a very trained eye for the value of paintings and antiques, and a very cold heart when it comes to human interactions. He really gets along better with artwork. He wears gloves so as not to have to touch any people, but for the first time in his orderly life, he finds himself eager to reach out when a mysterious woman telephones, asking him to evaluate the contents of a mansion she's just inherited. Let's watch.
What do you have what's the word?
Valuation.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to present lot 231.
And Miss Claire, what else can you tell me about her?
Suffers from a very strange illness.
He speaks to her, but through a closed door.
Closed door? You mean he's never seen her face?
Not only him, no one has. What's it like living with a woman.
Like taking part in an auction sale. You never know if yours will be the best offer.
All right, so the woman who commissioned him doesn't have money problems. We're certainly getting the sense there from that clip that she may have some other issues.
You can say that again. It turns out she's severely agoraphobic and has not been outdoors for over a decade. And she's only 27 years old, so you got to think that's probably put a little bit of a crimp in her love life. She's a flesh and blood rare object, and Virgil becomes absolutely obsessed with courting her.
So how do you go about dating someone then who doesn't come out to play?
Well, she gets tips from Robert, a man in his 30s who has a knack for repairing almost anything mechanical, and he gets pointers from a certain Billy, played by Donald Sutherland. Billy and Virgil have been conspiring together for years so that Virgil himself can siphon off priceless portraits of women. Virgil underevaluates them, Billy bids on them, and then the hammer falls suspiciously fast and he gets them. Some viewers may guess where this is all headed before the final twists, but it is a fun roller coaster ride through luxury, fraud, romance, and the power of art. And I'd like to point out that the incredibly prolific, insanely talented Italian composer Ennio Morricone won the European Film Award for Best Musical Score for his wonderful contribution to this film.
It certainly was a wonderful musical score. Well, people of a certain age will do for affection and a friendly ear. It's also at the heart of an American independent film called Fading Gigolo. The movie has a surprising cast, including Woody Allen, Sharon Stone, and France's own Vanessa Paradis, doesn't it, Lisa?
It does, and this is another movie I really like. Fading Gigolo is out first here in France, then in the UK. It comes out at the end of May in the US. John Turturro has been acting for over 30 years. He's in 9 of Spike Lee's movies and I think 4 films with the Coen brothers, but he has also written and directed 5 times since his debut Mac in 1992, which won the Camera d'Or at Cannes for the very best first film shown in that year's festival.
But do I have the premise right for this film, Lisa? Woody Allen plays a pimp.
When you put it that way, it sounds crass, but yes, that is one of the terms for what his character, Murray Schwartz, ends up doing. So Murray overheard his dermatologist, played by Sharon Stone, mention that she'd just really like to try a menage a trois with another woman and a man not her husband. Murray knows that his friend Fioravante, played by Turturro, is pleasing to women in a certain way and could use the money, and one thing leads to another. Let's take a look.
I was at my dermatologist today. She was with her girlfriend, and they came to the conclusion that they both wanted to have a menage. I was thinking of you. You need the money, and I'm closing shop.
I am not a beautiful man.
Maybe I should try your guy out first, alone. Just me and him. You do this often?
No, I mean...
So this is kind of a part-time thing?
You could say that.
Is he Jewish?
Jewish? Yeah.
So this is what you do? You bring magic to the lonely.
Tell us about the cast, Lisa. I was surprised to see Woody Allen as an actor for hire.
That is kind of unusual, but he does act in other people's films when he believes in them, and he is perfectly cast here as an aging bookseller who lives with an African-American woman and half a dozen of her lively children. Personally, I've always liked Sharon Stone on screen. She lost some of her timing after she had a brain, something went wrong with her brain, an aneurysm, a few years ago, but this is a perfect role for her, and nobody would accuse Turturro of being particularly handsome or sexy, and yet he's got an earthy quality that's appealing to women, and it makes the proceedings feel anything but sordid. The plot, I have to say, plays on some broad stereotypes about what men and women supposedly want from each other and from life in general, but the cast makes each role shine, and it's funny.
Right, and French singer and actress Vanessa Paradis is also apparently very convincing.
She's very convincing. She's excellent as the observant Orthodox widow of a rabbi. She has 6 children, too. She's never been kissed. Figure that one out. And a Hasidic neighbor, beautifully played by Liev Schreiber, has always had a crush on her. Murray tries to coax her out of her shell. Here's what she had to say about her role as Abigail, and what her director has to say about his actress.
I play a character who is in a really difficult situation, but we've all felt the way she has felt at some point. There's always a period in time when we forget about ourselves, when we are forgotten, or even both at the same time, and we go on with our lives thinking it's normal because we have responsibilities.
She changed the movie. She more than realized the character. And you could feel it. It was like it became something greater.
Right, finally, well, France is one of the only places on Earth where Hollywood classics are re-released on a regular basis. Lisa, I think one of your favourite directors is getting some pretty special treatment at the moment.
Indeed. Just out in France are 8 films by the brilliant Ernst Lubitsch, made between 1932 and 1948 and remastered on DVD. You cannot go wrong with one of them, Designed for Living from 1933. 3 impossibly attractive but dirt-poor individuals meet on a train to Paris. Gary Cooper, a painter, Frederick March, an unproduced playwright, and Miriam Hopkins. And at first they all assume that the others are French. They're speaking in French. They realize they're all Americans. They take an immediate dislike to each other. And then what happens? The two men both fall in love with the girl and she with them. So what's the solution to a predicament like that? Why, to move in together, all 3 of you. Of course, in a Paris garret, what could possibly go wrong? But it's not sordid, it's jaunty, and everything is implied, done with deft strokes, incredible economy. It's what we call the Lubitsch touch, and boy, do I wish more directors had it today.
All right, well, definitely sounds like one to rewatch. We're going to leave you now with an excerpt from Design for Living. Thank you, Lisa, as always, for your wonderful cinematic insights. Thanks to you also for tuning in. Don't forget, you can get more movie and culture news on our social networks. Until next time, it's Curtain Fall.
I'm going to be a mother of the arts. No sex. It's a gentleman's agreement.